Voters in 4 states, including Maine, heading to the polls today to decide who will represent their party in November's midterm election.
It's a big day. We have several candidates running in our state for 3 races: governor, U.S. Senate, and Congressional District 2, starting with the 5 Democrats running for governor in Maine. We have Shenna Bellows, Troy Jackson. There is Angus King III. Also Hannah Pingree, and of course Dr. Nirav Shah.
The 7 Republican candidates running for governor are Jonathan Bush, Bobby Charles, David Jones, Garrett Mason, Ben Midgley, Robert Wessels, and Owen McCarthy. The
race for U.S. Senate, Democrats Graham Plattner and David Costello are challenging Republican incumbent Susan Collins, or one of them will, after primary day.
And finally, voters in Maine's 2nd congressional district will be going to choose one of 4 Democrat candidates to run against former Governor Paul LePage. LePage is the only Republican in the race.
That's right. Our Ryan Bell caught up with everyone on that ticket.
A final election eve push from the 4 Democratic candidates running for Congress in Maine's 2nd congressional district.
I have a record of supporting Maine families, jobs, health care, education, the environment that none of the other candidates have.
State Senator Joe Baldacci keying in on affordability during his final press conference, continuing to condemn the war in Iran and intensifying his attacks on former Governor Paul LePage, the presumptive Republican nominee running unopposed in his primary.
Paul does not care that the war in Iran has cost Mainers at the gas pump, at the grocery stores, and for some Americans, their lives.
Inside the Bangor Public Library, former congressional staffer Jordan Wood highlighting his support for a universal health care system.
And I believe that we should expand Medicare to include dental, hearing, and vision.
Wood also pledging to oppose corporate money and influence in Washington.
Because this is the barrier that stands in the way of our ability to deliver the historic social change that we need around affordability.
Just up I-95 in Old Town, we caught up with State Auditor Matt Dunlap before a final round of door knocking.
What I've heard from folks is they're very concerned about the state of our democracy, the cost of living. There's a lot that's pressing down on people right now, and they want some change, they want some relief, and that's why I'm running.
Dunlap singling out Baldacci for taking money from national groups working to elect Democrats.
The voters of Maine should have the right to determine the outcome of these elections.
Meanwhile, social worker Paige Loud sharing her closing argument at a Pride event over the weekend.
I don't think Republicans are ready to go against a 29-year-old woman.
Loud also laying out her priorities for Washington.
As a social worker, I understand that people need access to food, housing, and health care. I am running for Medicare for all to make sure our kids are fed, to make sure we're not bombing other countries and we're putting that money back into here at home.
All candidates say they encourage Mainers to get out and make their voices heard. In Bangor, Ryan Bell, News Center, Maine.
And a quick reminder, if you're unenrolled, you can still help choose a candidate for either party under Maine's new semi-open primary law.
Right, so you have the option to select which ballot you would like at the polls if you're unenrolled.
We're also keeping an eye on Maine's 1st congressional district for you. 2 Republicans are going up to run against incumbent Democrat Shelley Pingree. They are Josh Petrowitz and Ron Russell. Our Phil Hirschkorn recently moderated a debate between those 2. And during that conversation, each of them touching on health care policies and why they believe a Republican majority in Washington would be so important. So to make sure you have everything you need before voting, we have Leanne Stapleton live in Portland with some general reminders.
Yeah, good morning, Leanne. What do you have for us?
Hey, good morning, guys. So this is some advice from the Secretary of State's office. If you plan on heading to the polls, be patient. Chief Deputy Secretary of State Kate McBride says some of the busiest times can be lunchtime or after the business day when people are getting off of work. That's when people tend to really show up because they have more time. She says if you can vote outside of those hours, lines tend to be a little shorter. Now, according to the Secretary of State's office, over 92,000 absentee ballots have been requested for this primary election.
So we've been comparing them to 2022, so the most recent gubernatorial race. And so far, numbers have been pretty consistent. We do have, I'd say, maybe 3 times as many requests for absentee ballots as what we saw there. But the party numbers break down in the same ratio as they did in 2022.
Now, depending on your polling location across the state, polls can open as early as 6 a.m., which is in about a half an hour, or as late as 10 a.m., but all polls do close at 8 p.m. across the state. Now, if you're voting absentee, McBrien says that you should bring your absentee ballot to your polling location by 8 p.m. today. Do not mail them in. They need to be in the hands of the poll worker in order for it to be counted. Live in Portland, Leanne Stapleton, News Center, Maine.
All right, thank you, Leanne. And on your ballots today, you'll see that most of the races are ranked choice voting. It happens when there are 3 or more candidates in a race.
So this time around, that includes the Democratic and Republican primaries for governor, the Democratic primary for U.S. Senate, the Democratic primary for Maine's 2nd Congressional District, and some House primaries as well. So what? Katie's here to walk us through all this housework.
There's a lot of them. So ranked choice voting allows you to rank your candidates based on preference. To demonstrate this, I have created a sample ballot here. As you can see, we have some fine candidates on here. Steep competition. Sharon, Lee, Todd, Leanne, and Katie.
There's only one choice.
Well,
Katie. Oh, clearly.
Well, thank you. Well, we'll see how you guys shape out. So it can get confusing with so many people. This is the amount of people and more on many of our ballots. So to break everything down, I talked with some experts. We are here with Ron Schmidt, professor of political science and department chair at the University of Southern Maine. Here's my ballot. There's a lot of people on it. Looking at it, what do we do?
First of all, I should say, if you want to vote sort of old style, if there's one person you want to support and that's it, you do not have to vote for more than one person.
So if Sharon's my number one, I can just fill in Sharon's bubble.
That's right.
And we're locking it in.
Yep, and you can leave the rest blank, or if you want, you can vote all the way across for Sharon.
You can rank as few or as many candidates as you'd like in order of preference. There is something, though, that's a big no-no on the ballot.
You accidentally happen to fill in 2 people as your second choice. There's no way for the vote counters to know who really your second choice was, so they won't count either.
Once your ballot is properly filled out, you're ready to cast your votes.
And they'll begin by counting your first vote.
When all the votes are in, if someone gets a majority over 50%, they're the automatic winner.
Exactly.
But if all of our candidates don't get 50% and we have Katie, people weren't really rocking with her. She's in last place. Now she's out.
Anybody who only voted for Katie, they're done. But if somebody voted for Katie first place and Leanne second place, now Leanne will get that vote.
Here's what the rest of this scenario could look like. Votes for Katie are distributed between the remaining candidates. No one is above 50% yet, so another person is eliminated. This time, Lee. If you voted for Lee, now your vote goes toward your second choice. Or if Katie was your second choice, she's already out. So your vote now counts toward your third choice. Finally, Sharon lands on top with over 50%.
Ranked choice voting requires a fair amount of patience.
We're catching up now with Chief Deputy Secretary of State Kate McBrien. What races do you think ranked choice voting runoffs will come into play?
We have no idea what to expect. That's really up to the Maine voters. But it's quite possible that we could have statewide elections like the gubernatorial race. We could have congressional races. We could also have Senate and House races for the state legislature that go to ranked choice.
How long could it take to learn the results of some of these elections that might go into ranked choice voting runoffs?
You know, if it's a statewide race, like if it's the gubernatorial race, I'm expecting we won't have results until the week after the election. We're going to push really hard to have some results by the Juneteenth holiday. If it's Congressional District 2, that might be a little bit sooner just because you don't have to go throughout the entire state to pick up everything.
Whether you decide to rank multiple candidates or just one, your vote will count as long as you fill out the ballot correctly. And if you still have any questions or are confused at all, you can always ask a poll worker while you are voting.
And you can get a new ballot if you mess up and
Absolutely.
accidentally choose the same candidate twice for a certain rank,
Yes.
right?
So don't throw your vote away. Get a new ballot. There's ways to get through it.
Good. All right. Thank you, Katie.
Firing my campaign manager as we speak.